I'm going to compare Elden Ring native HDR, which is perfect on the PC, no problem, no black level rays, is one of the best HDR games we have on the PC. I want to compare this with the trick that I've been sharing with you for Auto HDR. So the trick I'm talking about, if you are new, is turning on HDR on Windows, maxing out the SDR HDR slider, turning off the Auto HDR and turning off the HDR from the game, and we're going to use full range on the GPU, force limited on the TV, and we're going to lower the black level using fine-tune dark areas -11 and screen brightness 49. Okay, that's the trick. So what I want to show you is that trick looks exactly the same near black. So in terms of the visibility, it's exactly the same as the Elden Ring native HDR, which is full range, no problem on the PC. So you have a good point of comparison, because if we are comparing broken HDR games all the time with these tricks that I'm sharing with you, you might think, yeah, your trick looks better because the native HDR is broken. Okay, so I'm not saying I would recommend you to use this trick on Elden Ring. I'm going to use the native HDR always. Every time you can use the native HDR is going to be the better option for sure. What I want, my point on this video, is to show you that the trick that I share with you is actually very good, and it's near black, it's not crushing blacks, and it's giving you the same visibility as a good full range native HDR game on the PC. So this is gonna be a spoiler free. This is you see, this is the beginning of the game. So, and I have my character by default. So the settings that I use here on Elden Ring for the native HDR is adjust brightness 4, maximum brightness 800, which is gonna do a little bit, a little bit more than what I want. The max CLL is going to be like 836, but that's okay. And saturation just in the default value. So, but I'm just gonna put it at 5, so there's no tweaking, just as it is. So I'm going to show you this native HDR. We're going to come inside the cave here. So inside this building, so you see near black how it looks. And then I'm going to turn it off. I'm going to turn off this HDR, and I'm going to show you the trick. So now for this, I'm going to turn off the lights so you see better, because otherwise you cannot see this darkness here. So let's take a look at it. You can see, hopefully on the video, we can clearly see on the darkness here on Elden Ring, but it is not a black level race or anything. It looks perfect. So you can see all these corners that are dark. And also this game has the character itself illuminates the darkness, which is a good creative decision in my opinion. It works very well on all the Dark Souls games and here on Elden Ring. So you can see the corners, no problem. It is perfectly visible. Now I'm going to turn off the HDR from the game, and I'm going to set up my settings. Okay, so we'll see. Just come here, we can turn this off, and you see the black level is raised because the Windows HDR has all the SDR content limited, so we have to lower the black level. So what I use here is fine-tune dark areas. Let me move the camera so you can see all the screen. Fine-tune dark areas -11 is what I like to use here, and this is the equivalent. So fine-tune dark areas -11 and screen brightness 49 is the equivalent of crushing from 0 to 15. So it's the same as forcing limited one time, and then I'm going to force limited on top of that. So we are doing double limited for the black level, and we are limiting the contrast. So we're limiting the brightness one time. Okay, so let's take a look at this. It looks exactly the same as the native HDR. Go back on the video so you see the visibility on these corners is exactly the same. No changes whatsoever. Now there are other changes, and you might like this more because it is brighter. It is going to be brighter overall when you go outside and a little bit more colorful. So the colors, I would say, they are probably incorrect because they pop more. You are going to love it, but it might not be accurate. But you can see the visibility near dark is exactly the same as the native HDR. Exactly the same. No difference whatsoever. And you can go back on the video and see it for yourself. It's exactly the same. So I'm not crushing blacks. You get exactly the same visibility. So now let's go outside for a moment and you will see. Well, now the time of the day is different. So now it's at night because the game has a dynamic time of the day. But everything is visible and beautiful. This game has, these neon colors during the night. Sometimes it looks like violet, but it's just an artistic decision. That tree looks very, very good. On native HDR, this tree looks much better. Much better, actually. Let me change. Now that you see the tree, let me change. So this tree right now on the recording, let me see how it looks. Yeah, so in the recording, it looks blown out. So you're not going to see the difference. But I can describe it to you. The native HDR has more fine details on the tree. So this tree here looks bright. It looks awesome. But there is no HDR, I would say, resolution, fine detail, brightness that has more precision. Like it's a brightness precision. So you see some certain branches of the trees being more bright. So you see this background popping in a different way. You don't get that with the trick. So native HDR is better. So let me switch again to the native HDR. What we have to do is just go back to stock, back to the standard settings. So I have to do this. You will see how incorrect it looks if I don't do this limiting thing. So you will see. I'm gonna show you how bad it looks if I don't do this trick. If I just use the full and I don't lower the black level, look how this looks. Completely washed out. Completely washed out. And if I go to the interior of the building, you will see that it looks overly bright. It's completely washed out. That's how the SDR content looks in Windows. It's completely washed out because it's limited inside that HDR container. And on top of that, you have to limit the black level one more time. So now let me switch on the game. Let me switch to the native HDR. Let me show you that interior one more time and show you the tree. Okay. See? It looks exactly the same as my trick on the inside. So the near black visibility is exactly the same. So this is the proof that the trick that I'm sharing with you for this, it is going to work for every single game. It doesn't matter if the game supports HDR or not. It is actually, I would go as far as to say, as it is actually accurate, near black. You are not crushing blacks, you are getting the correct visibility near black, in my opinion. After testing the game on SDR or native HDR, and this game is a good reference because it is a native HDR game. So for example, now with the native HDR, with HGIG, okay? So I am using HGIG. Let me show you. Of course, HGIG. This is what you have to use here to get the best HDR on Elden Ring. So you see those fine details popping. Of course, on that recording, I'm not expecting that's gonna be visible. So what I do here for the settings of the game, actually, I lowered this adjust brightness to 4. Okay, I lowered this to 4 because that makes that gets rid of a little bit of clipping that you have with this maximum brightness being 800. So with this native HDR, you get fine details on the highlights. So you have some very small fine details here that are brighter, that are popping, that you do not get with the trick that I'm sharing with you. You do not get that. It is very, very fine and nice details here that are popping. It's like having a higher resolution, a higher contrast, a higher, more information you have on HDR for sure. So yeah, it is clearly better, no question about that. But my point on this video was to show you that the trick that I've been sharing with you is actually not, it is not crushing blacks. It is giving you exactly the intended visibility. And comparing that here on Elden Ring is a good comparison because this game is good. It's full range and it has no problem on HDR. So yeah, let me know if you have any questions. This is one of my favorite games ever. I mean, this is just phenomenal. It is a shame that technically the game has a lot of issues. I need to use a mod to remove the 60 FPS cap because the game is capped to 60. The frame rate is very unstable. The anti-aliasing is just TAA blurry. The game stutters. It requires too much CPU. And the GPU also, like, the game runs very poorly on my system with a 5800 X3D and a 3080 12 gigabytes. It drops at 4K down to the 40s, so 43 frames per second in some areas. That's just, it doesn't look that good. But the game itself, the open world, and just the variety of enemies and the level design of Elden Ring is unbeatable. There nothing come even close to this game. So for me, this game is a 10 out of 10, and I wish this game looks like Horizon Forbidden West. That's what I would like. I would love to have a game like this looking like Horizon Forbidden West, but actually being very, very, being challenging, which I like. Elden Ring is not that challenging in comparison with Dark Souls and Sekiro, but it's still challenging, and it has some amazing boss battles. And yeah, I mean, this is my favorite game. I am about to beat the game, but I don't want to. I have the final boss there almost done, but as you see, 107 hours, almost 108 hours, and I try to not level up too much because I don't want to be overpowered. But I don't want to beat the final boss, man. This game is just amazing. I don't want to finish it. I don't want to end the game until I see all the secrets. Yeah, because once I beat the final boss, then I don't want to. I'm not the one that plays the game more than one time. So yeah, it is amazing. And I don't like to level up the character. I don't like to do anything. Just stuck. So yeah, let me know if you have any questions.